Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks for coming to Minecraft Legends, building an animation style true to Minecraft. My name is Eric Luhta. I'm the principal animator at Blackbird Interactive. A little bit about me, I've been animating in both film and games for over 16 years now. I was the lead animator for most of Legends development cycle before moving to my current role. Some of my previous titles include Age of Empires 4, Dawn of War 3, Bioshock 2, and then on the film side, Hotel Transylvania 2, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, a bunch of Toy Story and car shorts, and some other stuff. Blackbird Interactive, we're an independent development studio in Vancouver, Canada, and with over 300 employees, we're one of the largest indie studios in North America. Our founder, Rob Cunningham, he's one of the original creators of the Homeworld franchise. And we've been building our reputation on these in-depth strategy games in vibrant, immersive worlds with this kind of signature BBI sci-fi style. So you might recognize some of our past games like Hard Space Shipbreaker and Deserts of Carrick. And we're also working on Homeworld 3 and a new roguelike called Earthless. But I'm here today to talk to you about Minecraft Legends and the challenges we faced adapting this beloved IP from an animation perspective. And it's my hope that even if you're not an animator, you're going to leave with an understanding of some of the obstacles you'll face when adapting a well-known IP. And it'll give you a process that you can follow to help identify the core essence of an IP and know when you can bend the rules without sacrificing what makes it special. So if you're not familiar with Minecraft Legends, it's an action strategy game we developed in collaboration with Mojang, the original creators and owners of the Minecraft franchise. And in this game, you're brought to a version of the overworld. It could be before the one we know in Minecraft. It's not super clear about that. It's a legend. And this land, it's a gentle, peaceful land. There's no war until the ravaging piglins invade. And so you're the hero. You're brought there to inspire and lead the inhabitants by commanding them in battles to victory against the piglins. So 5 years ago, I joined BBI to work on this new Minecraft game. Back then, it was called Project Badger. And this was super exciting for me. Minecraft is one of the biggest franchises in gaming history, has over 140 million active players, over 600 million copies sold since 2011. So there's few franchises as megalithic as Minecraft. The block style, everyone knows it. It's a universal icon in games and pop culture. And so on examining this unique visual style where you have these pixel perfect blocks and they're snapped to a grid, my first thought is, how do you animate these appealing characters in a pretty iconic but rigid aesthetic? That was a super intriguing question for me, and it was clear that we were going to need to come up with some creative solutions for that. So today what we're going to cover are approaches to understanding what made Minecraft unique, the process of deciding what could be added without breaking the IP, and an approach to animating the characters to both serve the gameplay and enhance the narrative. And along the way, I'm going to share some techniques that I've learned, I found really helpful in inspiring creativity and staying focused on the goals. So, part one. At our highest level, we have our core problem. How do you adapt an IP like Minecraft without sacrificing what makes it iconic? So what you can change, what you can't, and how do you figure that out? So as I started to dig into this, the core animation problem in my mind was this: our game still needs to feel like Minecraft. So Legends needs to walk this line between being authentic to the original game, but still having its own unique identity. The challenges we faced in animation, they paralleled the art challenges. So you could say, it'll look authentic to Minecraft if you just use the same textures, but then you run the risk of just looking like a Minecraft mod. But if you push things too far, then you start to become something different and you could potentially alienate the fans. Art had a pretty solid starting point, however. Despite the seemingly straightforward pixel art style, Minecraft's aesthetic, it operates on a pretty intricate set of rules and guidelines. There's a very lengthy, detailed art Bible, and mastering it took time, even for the accomplished artists at BBI. The problem was when it came to animation, there was very little to go on. The art Bible didn't cover animation at all. There was basically one decision we had made with Mojang at the start, and that's that we would have an exaggerated style. So how we got from this minimal and procedural movement style of the original game to that exaggerated style was kind of the big question. So there's one clear characteristic when you see Minecraft characters move. Their arms and legs don't bend. So as a character animator, I'm thinking like, can we really do this well without being able to do that? And the only existing spinoff at that time, Minecraft Story Mode, had chosen to bend the arms and legs. But there's kind of a visual tension there when almost everything is straight, and then you have these few instances of bends and curves. And in hindsight, Mojang felt this was kind of a misstep for the franchise. And with Legends, we wanted it to be a direct descendant to Minecraft. And nothing bends in Minecraft, so it felt right to maintain that. I kept coming back to my core intuition, that it has to feel like Minecraft. Mojang's own guidelines talk about loving the chunk of the blocks and how crucial that block silhouette is for the player. So for us, there was a clear path forward. We're going to have to figure out how to get appeal and interest with these constraints. And that leads me to my first creative principle. Does it really need this? So initially, it seemed kind of crazy to animate characters without bending the arms and legs. And in whatever you're doing, whatever your discipline is, there's always these elements that kind of feel indispensable, as if there's no way to do what you're trying to do without it. But more often than you realize, you can throw these things out. And by doing so, you'll unlock some fresh perspectives and approaches that are otherwise undiscovered. So it's worthwhile to scrutinize the things that seem sacred and find out if they really are. Just be fearless, throw it out, and see if there's a way. And even if you decide you have to keep it, the exercise of going through that will kind of yield some fresh insights and deepen your understanding. So I just wanted to dive in. This is my first, one of my first animation attempts at a run cycle in the game. And it seems fine. It would do the job. You can tell the character's running, but something's off about it. It looks like Minecraft, but it didn't feel like Minecraft. So as you can see here, there's a lot of side-to-side sway, and there's also some asymmetry in the character. He's leaning more to one side than the other. This is all kind of stuff we just kind of naturally assume are givens in animation, very common concepts. And so because it was off, I was like, okay, I'm really going to have to dig into the original game and see, like, what is it about that movement that makes it tick? Now, one thing that's interesting is the animation in the original game, it's procedural. And that means that all the movement is coded by the programmers rather than keyframed and finessed by the animators. So the walk cycles, they're quite literally hard-coded sine functions that just oscillate the arms and legs back and forth. Turning, stepping, everything is governed by code. So there wasn't this clear-cut animation style where you could look at the human decisions that were made that you could kind of build upon. But I had to define these qualities in animation terms to give us a starting point. So I analyzed all the animations that did exist to try to find some kind of common pattern or thread that I could use as an anchor. And the thing that kind of emerged was what I call movement along a single plane. So here you can see the mining animation in the original game. This is exponentially the animation you see more than any other. And if you think about it in real life, if you had to swing an axe, what you would do is you would have to bring that axe out and up and down. There's kind of a 360 range of motion there. But if you look at Minecraft's version, it's kind of along a single plane there. It's a very, there's only two axes at work. Likewise, if you look at the first-person walk animation, there's this kind of U pattern, but it's almost as if there's like a window in front. So the movement is constrained along this plane in front of you. And looking at the walk animation, usually when we walk, our arms and legs kind of swing back and forth in front of us, but here they're locked to the sides. So taking that stuff, I kind of went back and did another attempt using that kind of idea of single plane movement, and this started to feel much more on track. We continued to iterate on it, and now you can see kind of where we got to with some of the final locomotion animations in the game. And this constrained movement palette, it really harmonizes well with the grid world. If you think about it, blocks are made of 90-degree angles, so it's kind of logical for the movement to be constrained along a 90-degree axis. And this revelation was like the foundation of our approach. So that insight was really valuable. But what about character posing? Now there's only one full body animation in Minecraft, that's the walk. That's really all I had to go on. So I kind of focused on that. What could I pull out of it? It reminded me of those pedestrian crosswalk icons and something that you can instantly recognize. It favors clarity over detail. And so it seemed useful to start approaching poses as if you were doing something for an icon or a sign. And so I continued exploring that with single plane movement, iconic poses. And then one thing I noticed was things were starting to clash with the established conventions in animation. So some of the stuff I pointed out earlier with the side to side and the squash and stretch, these are kind of directly at odds with Minecraft's style. So if you're an animator, you will instantly recognize this excerpt. This is from a book called The Illusion of Life. It's written by the two of the original Disney 9 Old Men. It's all the techniques we use to this day for animation. And you can see here they're describing as, well, if you make a character symmetrical, doing the same thing on each side, that makes them feel flat. Don't do that. Always have it kind of different on each side. And you look at a Minecraft character, and it's as symmetrical as you can get. Another excerpt talks about don't have a character straight up. Always have a bend, a curve, make it interesting. But Minecraft is as straight up as you can get. So I just emphasized the same principles that Minecraft did. I left out the stuff that we usually do that didn't apply and just focused on that clear silhouette and the lines of action. And it shows that the IP should take precedence over discipline conventions for their own sake. So that's my next creative principle, define your limitations at the start. So when you're doing creative exploration with an established IP, you really need to set these limitations at the beginning. So this ensures that the IP stays central to your creative process, rather than coming up with something that you like, but then have to kind of retrofit and shoehorn it in later. The goal is to kind of minimize drift from the IP's essence as much as possible. Because when you're working on someone else's IP, the question shouldn't be, is this good? But is this right? Now, because the characters are made of blocks, once you start moving them around, it's really easy for the arms and legs to become disconnected from the body. So when you have these gaps and hinges, it starts to make them feel like a ghostly assemblage of parts rather than a cohesive physical entity. And so created a style guide for animation to help us stay consistent. Also, the way we design the rigs kind of help the animators stay on track with this. So you can see here some of the common problems that can arise and fixes for them. It was really easy to kind of get like a little gap in the bum there. So just avoiding things like that. You know, Minecraft characters, they're simple, but crafting poses that leverage that simplicity to hopefully start to approach something that looks a little bit elegant. That was the big challenge. So we worked hard to give the character poses appeal despite not having some of those typical animation principles at our disposal. So in this example, you can see on the first pose on the left, as soon as you start having the leg and the torso and the head at slightly different angles, things get really complex. You have all these different 90-degree angles kind of jumbled together. And the perspective on the squares at the end of the arms and leg, again, you have lots of different angles going on there, and makes this very simple character look super complicated. So by keeping those things in line, they just look much more appealing and cohesive. Now, one of the most effective tools I use when understanding something is abstraction. And by that, I mean stripping away as much detail and specificity as possible to test if the essence of the concept still rings true. So you could think of this as kind of going back to temporarily gray boxing or prototyping techniques, whatever that means for you. And outside of animation, there's lots of creative ways to do abstraction. Designers, you also often see them go to like a paper design or a board game version. For artists, you could reduce everything to just using color or only using line. Writers can reduce the plot to single sentences. You know, there's lots of ways to do it, whatever it means for your particular discipline. And there's two significant advantages to this. Lets you experiment and iterate with minimal overhead and resources. And it's also a really good litmus test, because if the thing feels right in this abstract form, once you add the details back in, it's definitely going to feel right. So in animation, abstraction is often replacing characters with cubes or simple forms. If you're an animator, it might remind you of the flour sack exercises many of us do in school, where you have to kind of convey these emotionally specific poses with this very limited form. But here I'm talking about timing and feel. So without the appendages, the faces, you really need to home in on how something moves at its foundation. But I'm going to illustrate my point with an example from a different game. Given the unique circumstance of Minecraft being the IP, abstraction is kind of what Minecraft is all about. It's the core characteristic of it. So the block forms mean this work of simplifying things down. It kind of already comes with the territory. So the typical things I do for abstraction, just using cubes instead of characters, kind of already doing that. And it's kind of another reason I think I was drawn to this project. I kind of like working this way, and it felt familiar. So another game that was invaluable was Dawn of War 3. This is a real-time strategy game. There's 3 distinct factions: the Space Marines, the Eldar, the Orcs. And so in an RTS, it's important for players to be able to easily identify all the factions with dozens of units on screen. It also helps us illustrate the movement style of each faction to the animation team. If you just take each unit and animate it in isolation, when you put them all together, everything's doing something different, and it just looks like noise. So using only cubes, I basically distilled each faction's base movement to a single axis. So X, Y, or Z, or you could think of this as pitch, yaw, and roll, and defining the style of their up and down movement. So each faction had its soldiers and a giant supersized unit. So the Space Marines, they're in this heavy armor. They have these massive shoulders. So it felt right to emphasize that. So they're all about the twist, their body rotating, and a really heavy vertical. So they spend most of their time on the ground versus up in the air to help them feel really dense and heavy. Contrast that with the Eldar. They're supposed to be very graceful, elegant, and refined. So minimal up and down, and also a leaning forward with a slight pulse to help them feel like they were kind of skating along the battlefield, feeling elegant and gliding along. And then there's the Orcs, this chaotic horde. They're super keen to charge into the battlefield. So emphasizing the Z rotation, the lean and waddle, and making them more bouncy, then they feel much more enthusiastic. So hopefully it's clear. When you see them all together, it's kind of easy to pick out the distinct styles there. And while this example is specific to animation, abstraction, it's universally applicable in different disciplines, especially when you're trying to understand the core of something. So game mechanics, level design, control feel, anything can be stripped down to the most basic form to explore what's essential. So the insights we gain from abstraction is we confirm that core foundation works. It sets our creative boundaries for the more specific and detailed decisions later and helps determine what's most critical. So through all this, we kind of zoned in on our animation pillars. The blocks don't visibly bend, emphasize single plane movement whenever possible, and clear icon style posing. So now that we had the animation pillars, we needed a logic for the exceptions to them. And I call this workflow pillars. So it's important to note that an uncompromising adherence to those pillars, it's not really necessary to be effective. So the first one was the 80-20 rule. So I got this from kind of a popular dieting strategy where you don't have to be 100% disciplined. If you're 80% disciplined and you leave that little 20% for dessert cheat days, you're still going to get pretty good results. And a similar approach works pretty well in animation. So in other words, we didn't have to restrict the single plane movement all the time. If we did it most of the time, that'll allow opportunities for a little flourish and animation polish techniques, and it still feels like you're obeying the rule. There's other things like never bending or squashing. That isn't 100% true either. You can see on the little idols of the creepers, their heads kind of squish a little bit. And that's because it had precedence in the original game. So right before the creeper detonates, you see it kind of scales up there. And whenever you're kind of doing something that has precedent in the original game, you're on solid ground. So you can see in our creeper explode animation, there's still stretch and squash frames in there. They're just kind of hidden in that 20%. They happen when the character's moving rather than building it into a pose. And so you can still get that so you feel it rather than see it. So we have the 80-20 rule. The other workflow pillar was what I call bias towards the minimum. So in the game, there's tons of stair-step technique or stair-step terrain, just like the original game. And so I kind of got into this rabbit hole of trying to figure out how the mobs were going to climb over all this stair-step. And I spent a lot of time exploring ways trying to make it feel realistic and stuff. And it was just creating a lot of headaches, and it never quite felt right. And eventually I remembered the guiding questions. Does it really need this? And is this right for Minecraft? So in Minecraft, there's kind of a gliding feel to popping up the steps. It's part of the game's charm. And so in answering those guiding questions, it became clear that maintaining that simplicity would actually kind of create a consistent aesthetic between Legends and Minecraft. So we ended up just doing a simple tilt on the mounts when they go up and down. That works well enough to kind of sell gravity and momentum without getting overly complicated. And then the mobs, they do have a very simple climb animation, but only when they're on their own and not when they're engaged by the player. Otherwise, they just kind of glide over the steps. And this felt like the right amount of enhancement without deviating too much. So the next creative principle, what would Minecraft do? So if a feature isn't present in previous iterations of the IP, reflective on if you're genuinely improving it or just making it different. There's an opportunity for cohesion by preserving something from the original game, even if you can change it. So now we have our workflow pillars, the 80% rule, bias towards the minimum. With those established, we can turn to what we can add on top of those things. And this is to achieve that goal of Legends having its own identity, but still being authentic to Minecraft. Now, Minecraft's movement has this kind of effortless gliding quality. It works well in the original game's context. But Legends had a pretty distinct narrative. The player is the hero of the overworld. The piglins are these fierce threats. And so the smooth gliding, it doesn't convey that tension and drama needed. We need a distinct contrast of light and heavy characters. And to do that, our animation needs to have a sense of weight. What gave us confidence in this is that you can add weight without undermining the established IP pillars. We can add it on top of the rules rather than overriding them. So you can still have characters move on a grid. You can still restrict the rotation and posing, but because weight's all in the timing, it's easy to add it. And because Minecraft had very little to say on timing, felt like a safe area to push things forward. So adding weight allows for stylistic exaggeration, but we didn't want to take it too far and start approaching cartoon land by keeping gravity materials relatively similar to what we experience in the real world. Helps players connect with the actions in the game. So here you can see the portal guard. We put a little bit of stylization, like the big iron spike ball. It hangs in the air a little bit longer than it really would. It drops a little bit faster, but not pushing it too much. And just selling the weight of when he gets ready to fire, that momentum kind of goes through the whole body of it settling, stuff like that. Another example with the magma boss, if it's not clear what this animation is doing, he has this attack where he pounds his fist in the ground and pumps lava into the ground, and it comes up all around you in these geysers. And so just kind of showing that it takes a lot of effort to really get that stuck in the ground. So he has this big anticipation where he really holds his arm up a long time to show the effort needed. And then it kind of gets stuck there, reflecting that, just always conveying that there's gravity at work. And so this was also crucial to help the game from feeling like it was a miniature, like the battles were on a tabletop. This was a key art direction that BBI and Mojang agreed on. But if the intention had been to be miniature, then we would have done something completely different. Ultimately, it depends on your desired game experience. So in Legends, we crafted a lot of new characters for the Minecraft universe. There are two of them, the cobblestone and plant golems. And they and many of the others, they're kind of named after the materials they're made of. So it felt crucial to reflect those materials' properties and how they move. And adding weight let us adopt this idea called truth to materials. So as an animator at Pixar Canada, most of my work revolved around the Toy Story and Cars franchises. And truth to materials is a central principle there. And that's because the characters are objects. They're toys and they're cars. Now, this concept has had different interpretations in art and architecture throughout history, but in the context of gameplay animation, you can summarize it as characters shouldn't move contrary to what they're made of. So as an example, here's in this car shot, you can see Guido. The metal of his body doesn't bend around. Maybe the rubber of the tires will squish, but the hubcaps won't because they're made of metal. And the only things that move have like a mechanical reason. They have joints or an otherwise believable way of moving around. Likewise with the toys, like the Mini Buzz character, we wouldn't make him walk because he has these little wheels on the base there. And you can see when he jumps, his knees don't bend. It helps him feel very light, made of plastic. And so when you embrace these inherent physical characteristics, you really infuse authenticity into a character. So when it comes to gameplay, the design requirements, they're often at odds with truth to materials, but you got to find a way to serve both well enough. So an example, the cobblestone golem, it needs to feel like both being made of this dense, heavy stone, but also respond very quickly to player commands. And if you look at its legs, the legs are the smallest part of the body. So when it's just walking around, you can see how much effort it takes to kind of move that big block of stone around its body. But if it suddenly had to start running quickly, if we just made the legs move fast, it would suddenly feel like it was very light. So looking at its anatomy, what makes sense? When it runs, its arms are actually much bigger than its legs. They're much stronger. So it made sense to have it move more like a gorilla, using the arms to propel it forward. In this kind of reconciliation, this is really the heart of truth to materials. You're balancing what the characters are trying to do with what their physical bodies will actually allow them to do. Truth to materials, it also applied to the many animals and creatures. When animating them, we referenced real animal footage, just the same as if this had been a realistic visual effects show. Just because it's a blocky, stylized aesthetic, it doesn't change how anatomy works or how an animal behaves. Just simplifies the level of detail you can show. So here's just a few examples. The war boars, just based on how wild pigs root, there's kind of this tendency as things get more stylized, people tend to just change how it moves to make it feel more cute or more different, but we were very conscious to make sure it's still an animal, still moves as close as we can make it to the real life version of it. Likewise here, for the beetle mount, referencing how it crawls, how the wings move. And everyone's favorite, the royal tiger. Just because it's made of blocks, it's still a cat, it's still going to behave like a cat does. So we focused on two components so far. Understanding the IP that gave us the animation style, building on the bedrock that gave us the approach to things we could change. So these two things, they create the visual style. And by itself, you have this kind of initial appeal, but just if that's all you have, it's going to feel pretty shallow. So we have the what and the how, and now we need the why. To make the characters more compelling and relatable, you kind of have to delve into their minds and create depth. And I call this animating from the inside out. So the guiding principle for our character design and development was this phrase, dangerous cute. This meant that the characters can look cute, but they should never act cute, because they don't see themselves that way. Their overworld existence is threatened, they're thrust into war. That situation wouldn't be fun for us, shouldn't be fun for them. I kind of liken dangerous cute to when you watch kids play Star Wars or lightsaber duels. As an external observer, it can be really amusing and adorable to watch them play, but for them, it's really serious. They're in this immersive fantasy. They're invested in the outcome and the narrative they're creating. There's real stakes for them. There's also the factor of motivation. So when kids are naturally sincere, they're endearing and they're naturally cute. But when they intentionally act cute, we can see right through it, and it's not nearly as appealing. So if we animate characters based on what would look cute, it's going to feel inauthentic and cloying. The cute designs should attract, and then our hope is the portrayal of authentic behaviors is something the players find engaging. It's just a testament to our artists. Like, it was really hard to do this because you can see this is our key art piece. It's adorable. It was really hard not to just embrace that aesthetic. So animating from the inside out means developing a thorough understanding of your character before you animate them. And what that means is you dive deep into their backstory. So their personality, their fears, life events, all this stuff informs how they're going to perform the actions you need them to in the game. And this is just as important for your enemy characters, even the little minions, understanding why they're part of this, why are they going along with the whole plan. It can help make the animation multidimensional and more appealing and engaging. So here's an example. I'm starting on a character. I like to make these mind maps to kind of explore ideas of who this character is. So they should each have kind of a unique backstory to give them a consistent personality and psychology. You have to really imagine being them. So as a piglin grunter, what's it like when you're born? Do you go to school? Well, how do you learn your place in the piglin hierarchy? What kind of stuff happens to you that tells you that you're just this little underling and you have to do what you're told? All these kind of things, it shapes their outlook and their goals. And it might seem kind of silly, but that's really the cornerstone to creating characters that feel dynamic and alive. Our animation decisions should never be based on what would be cool or what would be funny. It should be what would this character do in this specific situation, and coolness and humor naturally emerge from that. So define your characters first. By creating the backstories first, it kind of limits who the character is and simplifies the process of making creative choices. So if a character is slow and shy, you might think of someone like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. If Eeyore is suddenly running around crazy, super fast and all excited, it's either going to feel wrong or there's some very significant thing that happened to Eeyore that overrides his natural personality. That's the only two reasons for that. So by defining your characters first, you can keep them consistent. And if you do need to change it, then it's clear that there's a good reason for it. Now, if your game has a significant story component or a writer, these backstories might already exist. But if it's vague or non-existent, then you might need to piece it together yourself. The main thing is that this backstory exists. So in Legends, while there was an extensive story for the main characters and events, there was a little info on the mobs and some of the smaller piglins. So we had to kind of study the existing story, talk to the narrative folks, and kind of come up with them ourselves. We did this in regular daily sessions. This was actually the art team's most fun aspect of the project, getting together a few times a week, talking about who these characters were, where they came from, ideas, and just brainstorming, and it was really a rewarding part of the process. So one of my favorite examples to come from this was the Piglin Run. So it's very obvious there's a trope of the little character with the big weapon, but we wanted to kind of go a little bit further than that. This really reflects the mentality of the Piglin leadership. The bosses don't care. These guys aren't valuable enough to give them proper weapons. Whatever's in the warehouse, it's their problem. So in the animation set, we portray them as coping as best they can. See, when they're running, it's like kind of always pulling them around, or they have to drag it behind them. Hopefully there's some relatable subtext in there, like my boss made this terrible decision, I got to live with it. And so when they're idle, they're always kind of tired, exhausted. They're putting the mace down. And so having that background is how you avoid cliche. It's how you get something a little bit more interesting than just kind of generic breathing and looking around. So these details, they're designed to kind of stay at the periphery. They shouldn't really overshadow the main action. And the effect is that the cumulative effect over time, it kind of subtly tells the player there's a deeper narrative and world beyond just what's being seen on the surface. So idles are a great place for this. Also the locomotion, if you can infuse the personality to the animations you tend to see the most, that's a great place for it. Also within gameplay actions. So this is a test of all the mob cheer animations. So when you defeat a piglin base, all your mobs with you will break out into cheering. And just each one was approached like thinking both truth and materials. So how does their body work? You can see the mossy golem with the water jets. Instead of jumping, uses the jets to do it. The cobblestone golem, because it's heavy, can't really jump high. The skeletons, they're kind of the introverts. So they're just kind of like, okay, yeah, okay, I'll go along with it about that much, but that's it. And also putting it into any place you can. So these are just the skins you can pick. They're not specific characters, but skins still imply that there's a choice made. The player is choosing a character that looks a specific way. It's something that they respond to. And the way we choose to look, the clothes we use, they say something about ourselves and what we want to project to other people. So just trying to give personality there. So to recap everything, in understanding the IP, we talked about looking for common threads to give you anchors into that IP, using abstraction to test those anchors, see if they work. That gives you your IP pillars. And then using workflow pillars to keep from being overly constrained by them. Then building on the bedrock, this is the changes you make outside of those IP pillars. They should be based on precedent or things the IP doesn't specifically address. And truth to materials will let you create a consistent characters and connection to their world. And then thinking inside out. So remember, style is only half of the equation. Have backgrounds for all your characters and make your choices based on those backgrounds. Our creative principles, does it really need this? Always test the assumptions about what seems essential. Explore different ways, take things away, even if it seems impossible, and that'll help you discover new approaches and insights. Define your limitations at the start. Give yourself guardrails to stay focused on the IP's essence. Asking what would the IP do? Are you doing something better, or are you just doing something different? Create a through line to the previous games to help keep things consistent. And define your characters first. Know who they are before you animate them. Dive into their motivations and personalities to help find nuance and avoid cliche. And that's it. It's my hope that some of these ideas will be helpful if you ever find yourself working on an established IP or you currently are. And hopefully the creative principles can help with creativity and staying focused on your goals. Thank you. I think we have a couple minutes if anyone had any questions.
I know. Thank you for the talk. It's fantastic. Can you tell me about like some particular breakthrough during your process, or like a key learning that just sort of like clicked? Because there's a stark difference from working like on the Dawn of War 3 and then Minecraft Legends.
It was really that kind of single plane movement, and also recognizing that all the stuff we usually do in animation might not necessarily apply. So just kind of having to make that shift and like, okay, it's okay if I don't do all the stuff you're taught you're supposed to do all the time, and just kind of embracing that and accepting that. And I think that really helped us find something that works well with Minecraft specifically.
Well, thank you.
Hi, and thank you for the presentation. I think it was really, really interesting. My question is specific about locomotion and animation, and I was wondering what's your process when you go about determining the speed at which you would author the animation?
For locomotion, for me, the translate Y, or the up and down, that's actually going to affect locomotion the most. That's more than 50% of the character of it is determined by how that up and down works. If it's really bouncy, if it's really kind of gliding, if it's kind of feels really heavy. So I try to figure that out first. I also try to think about cadence a lot. Does the cadence of the steps feel right for who the character is on top of feeling right in the environment? Sometimes that can be really tricky. It's a lot of trial and error, but I usually start with those things, at least as far as locomotion goes. So thinking about who the character is, figuring out the appropriate up and down for that, and then from there, working on the cadence and going forward from there.
Thank you.
Again, thank you very much for the talk. Really, really cool to see. It's slightly off topic, but not really, hopefully. I'm very curious about your team, like what kind of team you had on this project and how you ran that.
It was a small team by most project standards. I think at the peak we had myself plus 4 animators. Right now on the current DLC stuff, there are 2 animators. And so for us, it was really, I think the key to it was those daily sessions that I meant. Like, it's easy for everyone to just kind of go off and be like, okay, you do this animation set, you do this animation set, and everyone just kind of gets siloed. So I made a conscious effort. We were always talking about who the characters were. Everyone was always showing work. Anyone can give feedback, doesn't matter like who you are. And that really helped people feel like they had ownership, they were contributing. And I think that was really the key to making the team work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great talk. Great work, I would say. I wanted to know a little more about Mojang, how you work with them and how they interacted with all the work you did, and how they maybe interfered, or maybe they were, they put some constraints on what you did. So yeah.
Mojang, they're awesome. We have a really great relationship with them now. We know each other super well after over 5 years working together, and so they were always really responsive. They would give us the freedom to try things and do things, and then if they felt we were getting too off track or they wanted to steer it back, they would definitely let us know. But it always felt like it was a dialogue, a discussion. They know the franchise very well, so they were very sensitive to like, okay, this is drifting away from Minecraft, and that helped us also really start to learn and understand it. And now I think both BBI and Mojang have a really good understanding of what Minecraft is. Cool. I think we're out of time, so thank you.